ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures.
Hi there, welcome to Deep Dive Movie Reviews with my friend Steve Hackman and myself, James Marsh. This is our Oscars reaction video. The 94th Academy Awards have just happened. And so we're now going to go through some of the snubs, some of the surprises, and some of the big slaps that we may all have witnessed. So, Steve, I think there's only really one place to start here, isn't there?
Yeah, just when you're thinking, wow, this is going all according to plan, there's no upsets, this is just going by the numbers, suddenly Will Smith gets up and smacks Chris Rock right on live TV. And then, at least on my feed, James, I hear it was censored out of the US version, but I was getting the Australian version and I got the full F-bomb.
Right. Yeah, no, when I was watching the US feed and they muted it as quickly as they realized something was going off book. Right. But then I did later see the Japanese feed where not only do you get all the F-bombs, you then get the Japanese commentator over the top translating them all. So, which was kind of crazy. I mean, just to unpack, for anyone who hasn't watched it now, I'm sure it's the only thing anybody is talking about. It's the only thing being covered by any of the news stories. Yeah, Chris Rock came on to present Best Documentary Feature, made a couple of gags, and then made a joke at the expense of Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, Jada Pinkett Smith has been quite vocal about the fact that she suffers from alopecia, hair loss, and so these days she shaves her head. So she was there looking fantastic in a big ball gown, but with a shaved head. Chris Rock makes a gag that, hey, Jada, can't wait for G.I. Jane 2, which it's insensitive. There's no, I don't think he can claim he didn't know about what her situation is.
Right.
It's, there will be some people who say a joke is a joke and anything's fair game, blah, blah, blah. But, there's a time and a place, and this is neither. However, that was the extent of the joke. She kind of just sort of rolled her eyes and looked a bit uncomfortable. But then Will Smith, he leaps to his feet. He's right in the front row anyway. Leaps to his feet, bounds up on stage, and then full on smacks Chris Rock in the face. Walks off. Chris Rock's like, hey, it was just a joke. And he's like, you get my wife's name out of your effing mouth, basically. And said it twice.
I don't know about you, James. I actually got chills sitting there watching it. Like, literally, the heat was rising up in my face, like I was physically part of this altercation. It so completely took me by surprise.
Yeah, no, I think you and everybody in the room and everybody around the world, I think the wind was just knocked out of everybody.
Yeah,
especially in the room. Everyone was like, "Is this a bit? Is this a joke? Is are they doing a thing?" But
the only reason I thought for a second this isn't a bit, because it could have been a bit. When he dropped the live F-bomb, I knew that this was real. Like this is not staged. He's really, and there is a history of Chris Rock taking the mickey out of Jada Pinkett Smith. 2016, he had a joke at her expense that was a little inappropriate. But, having said that, I've been watching the Oscars for decades now, and there's a lot of jokes that hit below the belt. And anybody who's in that room has got to be able to take a joke. Now, granted, given Jada's condition, you can see where Will could really have taken offense and wanted to defend her. But the way he did it, in my opinion, wholly inappropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything about it was just poorly judged. Chris Rock shouldn't have made the joke at her expense. Certainly not. Right. It's not funny. I mean, mock people for whatever you want, but mocking people for their medical conditions.
Yeah, that's not
to
cool.
Their face on such a large stage. You're just like, come on. But then, you can also say that, Will Smith, that's not the time. That's not the way to respond. No. We get it. You're defending the honor of your wife in front of the same audience to whom she's just been made fun of and embarrassed. But but bounding up on the stage in the Oscars to smack him, and then shout what he said is, sure, it's an impulsive response. I don't think he thought much about it before he did it, but at the same time, you have to be like, wow. And then you're like, well, then now what's going to happen? Because in about 10 minutes, he's probably going to be given an Oscar.
That was through everybody's mind. How is he going to react to this? And here, giving my opinion again, he screwed it up. He gave a half-assed apology. He apologized to the Academy. He talked about how Denzel, pulled him aside and said, it's your best moment. The devil's going to come at you. But he kept talking, I want to be a bringer of love and a protector. And I'm thinking, dude, the only way this makes any sense whatsoever is if you apologize to Chris Rock right now. Like you cannot talk about love and peace, and we need all this kumbaya, and then employ physical violence, especially when we're looking at situations like the Ukraine. The whole evening, we were reminded of what happens when we use physical violence,
unnecessary
violence to propel our agendas. And so there's a whole, I've always been a big Will Smith fan, but he went down a few notches in my book today, because if he'd come out and said, listen, I was way out of line. I not only want to apologize to the Academy. Yes, I am upset with Chris Rock. I feel that was below the belt. This is inappropriate given her condition. But what I did, this is not how we're supposed to respond. And in society, if we're going to get up here and get on a soapbox, as often the Oscars do, about love and peace and all this, to me, I guess this is why I get a little irritated, is coming from a lot of family and a history of that conservative right wing. This is what Fox News points to and shows these guys are all full of crap. They say one thing and they do another. And that was going through my mind as well, how this is going to be the talking point on right-wing media of the left talks about all this love, but when it comes down to it, they're violent. There are so many ways that it's going to be spun now. I mean, yes, it's the left, it's the hypocritical left, it's black on black violence. It's, you can literally see whoever wants to spin this being given the ammunition to spin it however they want. I don't think he did nearly as much as he could have done in his acceptance speech. He managed to play devil's advocate for a second, in a weird way, he managed to parlay his recognition and justification for what he did into his acceptance speech, of equating the two characters, if you like, of Richard Williams fighting for his family and him fighting to defend his own family, in a way that you're kind of like, if that was just a spontaneous moment from Will Smith, or even if he's got some PA who scribbled it down quickly, said, say this. Just to play devil's advocate for a moment, it's kind of a well done moment, but yes, what it lacks is the apology. And what should have come straight away is, I'm sorry, I overreacted, I flew off the handle. I apologize to Chris Rock. And I was waiting throughout the speech, I was waiting for him to kind of turn to the wings and say, and sorry, Chris, we'll sort this out later. See, that is
something like that.
That would have been, I felt so much of his apology was almost like a political apology. I'm apologizing, but I'm not really apologizing. Yes, maybe I did a little bad, but it's because I love, man, because I protect
he apologized for ruining the ceremony.
Yeah.
And sullying the good name, but not for hitting somebody.
It was and it was kind of all linked into his role as a protector and linking it to Richard, and it's like, this is what protectors do. And I'm thinking, no, this is not how you're supposed to protect. This is not how you protect your wife. She was not being physically assaulted. Don't come across like you're the great defender of your family.
It's not like
it was just an inappropriate joke. That's really what at the end of the day it was, an inappropriate joke. And you're an A-list star, so there's better ways of handling this.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you go up to Chris Rock backstage afterwards and go, hey man, that wasn't funny.
Exactly.
That wasn't cool. And you don't even have to be nice about it. But what he did was the whole thing was a mess. Basically.
I would have, if you really want to get back at Chris Rock and you want to take him out, because now people are kind of in Chris Rock's side. After you got the physical altercation, suddenly you're not the righteous side anymore, Will Smith. But if he'd gotten up during his acceptance speech and said, and by the way, I just want to say to Chris, that was wholly inappropriate. My wife has this condition. I just want to say we need to do better. That would have put Chris Rock right in his place, in a much better place. Will Smith's street cred would have just gone through the roof, and it would have demonstrated like a much more gentlemanly Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, because when he did win, And during his speech, it put the room in a very awkward position because he was almost demanding their forgiveness immediately for what he did. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. You're not giving the room the opportunity to take a side here and to really take you to task for what you've done. You're insisting that everybody is cool with it and everybody's kind of on your side, and that this is part of your greater mission, your greater calling or whatever, and that you will protect your loved ones at any cost, whether portraying that in your work or in your real life or live on stage in front of the whole world, at any cost. And you're just like, well, hang on a minute.
And I think that's what it came down to, is there was a feigned humility in his apology without a genuine humility of a man who screwed up. This is, I screwed up and I apologize. And I'm sorry I did this because I want to be a bringer of love and protect. But at the end of the day, I'm a protector, and this is what I do for my family. And this is, there was this justification for it that, and to me, it's just reeked of a bad political apology, of which we constantly are seeing every day. And we've grown a little bit cynical too. And I found myself, I kept saying, come on, mention Chris Rock. Now's your time.
Yeah.
Come on, Will, mention Chris. This is not going to work if you don't mention Chris. Nope, didn't do it.
Right. And it's such a shame because, he was obviously the clear front runner, and I think he was a popular front runner. I think people were really behind him, and his speeches at prior award ceremonies had been really, fun and full of humility and respect for the right people and all the rest of it. And I think people were ready to really give him his moment. And then, 10 minutes beforehand, he completely ruins all of that sort of goodwill momentum that had been building up. And it'd be interesting to see what the lasting repercussions of all of this are, the ripples. The one thing I will say is from the Academy's point of view, or from ABC's point of view, it's saved an otherwise pretty dull, lackluster and dull and terrible show, really.
Yeah, we should spend a few minutes on the actual show itself.
Yeah, should we move on to the rest of it?
Yeah, I think we've covered the Will Smith, although I will say I'm looking forward to hearing what Chris Rock's response is going to be. That it's been pretty muted at this point, and maybe we won't hear anything.
Yeah, if I was Chris Rock, I wouldn't say anything at all, because I don't think he's got a justification. He can't claim that he was in the right.
No.
He made a poor joke. No question. So I think the best thing for Chris Rock to do is nothing. Just keep your head down. Don't say anything. It's for Will Smith to speak publicly about this. Apparently, I was seeing on Twitter from people in the press, they were being warned in the press room backstage, where you go as soon as you win, not to ask about it at all. They were just told a blanket statement, certainly in anticipation of this one. Do not ask them anything other than about their win. Right. And I think that's why. But what
about the rest of the show?
Well, the rest of the show, we came into today with a lot of controversy because, ABC again with meddling with the show, trying to make it into an award ceremony that would be embraced and loved and enjoyed by the world over, which I think is always the wrong approach. Right. I think it's an industry award ceremony for a particular industry. I don't think anybody outside of that industry should be expected to enjoy it or watch it or appreciate it. So if they do, that's a bonus, but that shouldn't be the priority. And so we came into this one, and 8 of the awards had already been announced, an hour earlier. So the first thing I did, even while we're still doing the red carpet, is I was looking on Twitter, and Variety had was announcing them all. Again, I saw that a friend who was in the room, and he had said, we have been told not to mention any of these on social media. But obviously everybody did, as I think part and part in protest for the fact that this was happening. So Variety. So we already knew going in that June had won 4 and Tammy Faye had won 1, and we knew who all the shorts winners were.
And it didn't shorten the show by a long stretch. That clocked in at 3.5 hours, and you've still taken out some awards. Granted, we get to see kind of the award, but obviously they trimmed it down so that it could fit into a tighter spot. But then we had to watch a really, what I found frankly was a silly and boring whole thing with them going to the Academy, Wanda Sykes going to the Academy Museum. I'm just thinking,
there was an ad for the Academy Museum, and you kind of expected, okay, they would probably do something to promote that because it is a big deal. Although by all accounts, the Academy Museum is not very good, and doesn't really handle the history. I have read a number of articles about the Academy Museum, we say that it feels like an apology to the lack of diversity in the history of the Academy, rather than a chronicling and a celebration of that history.
Right.
And you're like, okay. So that was weird, because it didn't even really show you what was in the Academy Museum.
No,
it was just
there was
Wanda
a couple
Sykes making
jokes. There's making bad joke about Dorothy slippers and running out of there with a TV. It just even the jokes were pretty lame. And I thought, if you're going to shave away the award ceremony and take away, like you say, these industry awards, then don't fill that time with just ridiculous little sideshow antics.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that. I mean, the other thing that really struck me as redundant was how many anniversary recognitions and celebrations there were. Yeah. Because a lot of these changes are supposed to be to pander to, or to make it the show accessible to a younger audience, a wider younger audience. And so you're celebrating the 60th anniversary of James Bond. It's like, sure, and you can see in the montage it's predominantly Daniel Craig clips
and Sean Connery. I'm thinking there's a very distinct lack of Roger Moore.
I saw very little. I don't remember seeing Timothy Dalton at all. I'm sure he was in there somewhere.
There was a quick clip, and there was I think there was one or two quick flashes to George Lazenby.
And yeah, and like I saw like one or two clips of Pierce Brosnan. You're like, come on, if you're going to do it properly, and they didn't. 50th anniversary of The Godfather. Sure, that's great. We should all be celebrating the 50th anniversary of The Godfather, but it goes against, and arguably the Oscars is the place for it, but it goes against the argument that, we need to make the show sexier and younger and all the rest of it.
Well, they did bring in BTS, which I'm wondering, what it was like
to do nothing.
Yeah, just when I think this is ridiculous. And I mean, one of my suggestions is, I thought Wanda Sykes, Amy Schumer, and who's the third host?
Regina Hall.
Okay. And what is she from?
TV mainly, I think. Yeah. I've seen her in a few indie movies.
And see, that's what I mean is I don't know who she is. I mean, so you've got somebody in who I don't I think I might have seen her somewhere, but I didn't know her name. Wanda Sykes I knew, Amy Schumer I knew. But again, both of them are not stars of gravitas. I'm thinking, and this is where my personal opinion comes in, where the show lacked is having a host that really brings a sense of gravitas and links the different ages together, where, in times past, you had Johnny Carson, you had Billy Crystal, who were recognizable. And I realize these days you can't always have the white male. There's plenty of diverse people that could fill that role in a way where you don't feel like you're bringing in the bench. That's what I kept feeling is you're bringing in the bench. There's these big stars out there. There's these big MCs that you could get, people that are widely recognized and loved by a broad spectrum because of the time and effort they've put into the industry. And I feel like they're going for these niche markets that leave a lot of us going, really?
Well, it felt like with the hosts and with a lot of the presenters as well, it was a combination of to say it brutally, sort of diversity hires and the next generation. So there was a lot of sort of young stars of tomorrow, and then a lot of kind of, okay, how can we represent and how can we tick boxes? And they were more interested in the representation angle than in something that would be good for the benefit of the viewer.
Yeah.
Because these shows will always work best with one host who is your host. He holds your hand through the whole thing. He points out the stars and makes some tasteful jokes.
Things,
explains what's going on and why and what exactly that we are celebrating. And there were too many faces and voices, too many of whom were unrecognizable to the layman, to really get a handle on, okay, well, who's hosting this? Who's my conduit into the world of Hollywood's A-list, Hollywood's elite. And I think it's a big mistake. I think they really need to go back to a single host. But then it's finding a host that, like you say, bridges generations, appeals to multiple demographics, and who isn't problematic. and that is a problem. No one leaps to mind, unfortunately.
No, but I'm sure they're out there. I mean, given time, I could come up with a short list.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
But there was moments that I thought that genuinely worked. And here's the thing: is when representation happens naturally, it is so much more authentic. When Troy Kutzer won for Best Supporting Actor,
exactly,
I started to get misty-eyed. That was probably for me the most emotional part of the evening, because you could see the genuine gratitude he felt to the deaf community, that he was winning for them. But you never felt for a second he won this because they were ticking the deaf box.
No,
he did an outstanding performance. How he was able to convey comedy so well using sign language. And I just thought that for me was one of the highlights of the evening, is watching Troy Kutzer get his Oscar.
Yeah, I thought his speech was great. What he said about his dad and how his dad was deaf and got paralyzed from the neck down, so couldn't even sign anime. I thought that was pretty heartbreaking. I actually thought Jessica Chastain's speech was pretty good.
I thought
that was
too.
A lot about representing and recognizing and embracing the LGBTQIA community. And by and large, I thought actually the speeches were quite well handled. Yeah. They were pretty good. I mean, the only disappointment, if you like, was that it was kind of exactly who we had predicted. There was this late surge of support behind Coda, as we had suggested, and as the Guild Awards last weekend showed, and it won in all 3 of its nominated categories. And I think rightly so, and I think it's great. It was great to see Dune win 6 awards. Which I think. Which I thought was appropriate. It won really. I'd like to have almost seen it win costumes and makeup as well, but I understand that people don't want to give it everything. Right. But 6 technical awards is no mean feat, and it comes away as the big winner for tonight. And as we predicted, other than Eyes of Tammy Faye, which did do that pairing of Best Actress and Makeup, all the other winners only won 1 award each.
Well, and Denis Villeneuve will most likely see this snub corrected when Dune Part 2 is released. And if perhaps like Peter Jackson, they end up giving the award for the full film, because I know some of the critics were saying that some of the hesitation for Dune was they feel like it was still only half a film.
Sure. And I think that is fair criticism. And I hope that is what happens. I mean, all it takes is another kind of Coda to come in a couple of years' time, and then all of that hard work, people will kind of feel, oh, well, we've kind of recognized Dune, unless it is something on the scale of Lord of the Rings, where they did win Oscars for the first 2, but then it was the third one where the whole thing was
I will say,
recognized.
Before things were firming up for Coda in the end, I was throwing out the idea of Coda being the upset a few weeks ago, because I was saying how American audiences, the Academy members are mostly American. We've all come through COVID for 2.5 years. And just knowing the American mindset and wanting a little hope and to me, Power of the Dog versus Coda, I just felt that little extra edge that Coda needed was, after everything we've been through for the last 2.5 years, can we have a little hope? Can we have a little joy, a little smile on our face? I think that's one of the reasons we saw Coda win. And Jane Campion get the director.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, by and large, I think what it reflects is that there were a number of good movies out there. At the end of the day, you got a lot of films represented. A lot of films won an award. So a lot of these teams will go home happy, if you like. I think, Denis Villeneuve, sure, we've talked about him. He didn't get his award, but he was thanked profusely in every single one of those acceptance speeches. It does not go unrecognized that his how important everybody who worked on that film felt. And
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to be the guy that everyone recognizes that you're snubbed. That almost is an award unto itself. I was the one that was snubbed for Dune. I mean, that's almost something he wears now, as much as that becomes part of Oscar history.
Yeah, very much so. But I think other than that, the awards really did kind of play out as we expected. I don't think people will walk away and go, okay, well, these were.
Yeah. I
mean, you've got Paul Thomas Anderson still has yet to win an Oscar, but we kind of suspected, unfortunately, that would be the problem. Diane Warren has, she's had 13, 14 nominations now.
Yeah.
But her time will come. you know, and there were a lot of sort of first-time nominees out there this year. You know, Kristen Stewart, you know, Cody Smith McPhee. A lot of these people were first-time nominees. Even like Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons. You will see these people again at the
Absolutely.
Oscars.
Andrew Garfield, his Oscar is coming. It's just
sure, him and Cumberbatch. I think they've both got 2 now, and it'll come. Guaranteed for both of them. I think the only other sort of stat that's kind of worth mentioning is the fact that The Power of the Dog came in with 12 nominations, the most nominations. It won 1, and that was for Best Directing. And it's very, very rare that something wins Best Director and nothing else. And I'm racking my brains trying to remember the last time that happened.
Interesting.
And I think, it was The Graduate was the last time that a film won Best Director and nothing else. And that's what
that's
way back in.
That's an interesting stat. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's way back in the late 60s. So
see, Coda came in with just 3 nominations, but it won all 3.
Won them all.
Well, James, we've got a whole nother Oscar year now to start.
That's absolutely right. So in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe. Please ding that bell so you never miss an episode. Leave us a comment. I mean, what did you think anything was snubbed? Did you think there were any surprises other than that open palm from Will Smith? And please do check out some of the other videos that we've been doing. We've covered a range of new movies, a number of these now Oscar-winning films, and every Best Picture from 1928 up until now. We will eventually get to Coda in about a couple of years' time.
And next year's winner.
Yes, almost certainly before we're done. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you soon.
See you next week. Bye-bye.